my stuff is a little bit different than university stuff, right? My stuff is to make you think a little bit differently about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so what I really want to cover today is what is networking, why do we do it, and how do we do it? And the most important thing there is actually the one in the middle, and it's the why. It's the why we do network in the very first place. Because if you don't know the why, then we shouldn't be networking at all, right? There's no point. You need to know why you're doing things, but I want to talk about what the how is before we kind of get there. But in order to do that, let me make sure we're doing this properly. All right. In order to do that, I need you to draw a pig. So grab your pieces of paper, grab a pen, pencil, whatever, and I want you to draw a pig. So I'm going to give you about a minute to do this. So don't put, I'm actually not going to give you any instructions. Just draw a pig, and then we're going to start showing it and sharing it with everyone else. So. All right. Work a little bit more, maybe 30 more seconds. I'll give you guys. Looks like everyone's kind of putting their head up like they've kind of done the pig. So, all right. So we are going to go through this. Everybody's like, why did you make me draw a pig? I thought we were talking about networking. Well, I was like, Corp Venray, agro business. No, I'm just kidding. It had nothing to do with that at all. But I will give you a kind of a hint in a second. So first off, I think it's Robert. Let's see, show us your pig. Get it right up to the screen. Oh, it's still blurry. It's going to take a second. Oh, you got your blur on. That's why. If you have your background set to blur, it's going to mess everything else up. So we want to see that dirty room of yours. And then it'll make you actually do your room better. Okay. All right. So check out that pig. Okay, everybody, just take a mental image of his pig, and then we'll move on to the next one. All right, perfect. Thanks, Robert. Let's jump to Riley. Oh, look at that pig. Okay, excellent. Everyone look at Riley's pig. Okay, good. Greg's, let's go with yours. Okay, yeah, that one. And a different facing. All right, good. Sarah Jane, let's jump to yours. Oh, yeah, see, always the cute one from the girls. We love that. All right, perfect. And then Devin. Your pig. Come down a little bit. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, excellent. And the dish goes to your pig. Oh, straight on pig. All right, perfect. Okay. So I just want everyone to understand and kind of see everyone's pig and their sweet drawing skills, which is always good. Now it's my turn to kind of go through and tell you what it is. So I want you to look at it, and I want you to get an understanding of, yourself. This is a personality profiling that I did just by you guys drawing a pig. So first one, if the pig is drawn on the top of the page, okay, so whether or not it's at the top of the page, bottom of the page, middle of the page, if it's on the top of the page, the person is typically optimistic and very positive person. Okay, so that's the first one. You'd be optimistic and positive person. Next one, if the pig is drawn in the middle of the page, the person is more realistic and more factual. Okay. Now, third one, if the pig is drawn on the bottom of the page, the person is more of a pessimist and tends to have a negative outlook. Okay. If the pig is facing left, so if you're looking at it and the pig is facing left, right, the person is traditional, friendly, and remembers birthdays and dates. Now, if the pig is facing right, the person is more direct, likes to play devil's advocate, and doesn't avoid the issues. Now, if the pig is facing, where is it? Facing left. Oh, right. I did right. Oh, I missed one. Sorry. I apologize. If the pig is facing straight, like facing straight at you, the person is direct, likes to play devil's advocate, and doesn't avoid the issues. Now, if the pig is facing right, the person is innovative, action-orientated, not family or date-orientated, however. Right? So facing forward, facing right. That was facing right. Now, if the pig is very detailed, the person is more analytical, cautious, and superstitious. If the pig has a little bit of detail, like you just kind of scratch it, pig has only stick legs, the person is more emotional, bored by detail, naive, and a risk taker. Now, if the pig has 4 feet, right, the person is secure, stubborn, and has firm beliefs. Now, if the pig has less than 4 feet, the person is insecure or going through major changes in their life. Rich, I mean, you guys are in university, so you never know. Number 11, the larger the pig's ears, the better the listener the person is. Okay. And the last one, but not the least, the longer the pig's tail. So everyone who has a really big tail, anybody has a really big tail? Yeah, could be who has the really small tail? Really tiny tail. Yeah. See, and that's the problem. The longer the pig's tail, the better the person's sex life is. So that's just rounding it all out, just to make sure everyone's kind of on board. And so we won't let you share those things. I won't make you share your pig anymore. And you just got to take it on yourself and see how you're feeling about that. All right. So I want to stop here for a second, a little bit more. So why did we draw a pig? Number one is personality profiling. So hopefully maybe through drawing a pig, you got to know yourself a little bit more. And, you know, if we were in the classroom, we could share with each other. But on this one, we won't make you share it too much, which is all right. Shared it a little bit at the beginning. But it's around breaking the ice. It's getting people to laugh. So the number one key of networking is to kind of get out there, okay? Is to kind of break the ice. How do you break the ice? I will teach you the absolute secret to break the ice. Do you guys want to know? And this is actually a game I play with my kids when we're hiking, when we're walking around the mall, when we're walking like at the university, right? The game is eye contact and smile. And if I'm on the hiking trail, it's eye contact, smile, and get them to say hi back. Okay? So that is the number one way to break the ice and connect with people, is you make eye contact with them. That's number one. Number two is to then smile. So I'm going to challenge you guys over the next at least week, if not month, if not the rest of your life. I want you to raise your head when you're walking around campus or walking around the mall or wherever you're at. Keep your head up, start looking around, and make eye contact with people. That's number one. As soon as you make eye contact with people, you smile at them. As soon as you smile at them, right, get them to smile back. And so it's always a challenge of mine that I kind of challenge myself, is see how many people I can make eye contact with. I can make them smile because I'm smiling to them, right? And it's almost like a forced game, because people at malls tend to, and universities tend to just put their heads down and just kind of walk just like this. And I'm like, hey, raise your eyes, like everything's up here. You know, let's engage. And then when I go hiking with my family, we're going in the mountains and stuff, it's a game between my kids of how many things can we get from the people walking in front, like towards us. We always make eye contact, we say hi, and we get them to say either hi back is 1 point. If we can say, how are you doing? That's 2 points. And if we can get their age, that's 5 points. Now that seems really, really random and odd, but it's super fun when my 10-year-old and my 12-year-old and my 14-year-old girl, they're challenging people and they say, hey, how are you? And they're like, oh, how are you? What's your age? And they'll go, oh, I'm 35. Hi, thanks, have fun. And they're gone, because you only have 2 seconds, right? When you're walking on a trail with people, to get as much information from them as possible. The other one we like doing is, where do they come from? Right? So you just say, hi, how are you? Where are you from? And they're just like, oh, we're from Calgary. Oh, awesome. Have a fun trip. And then they keep on hiking. And so it sounds silly. It sounds weird sometimes, but it's a great exercise and practice of networking, breaking the ice, and connecting with people right away. Now, I'll tell you right now, the number one is eye contact and smiling and just say something. Doesn't really matter, right, what it is. So guess how good my kids are connecting with people, right? Just think about that. How good do you think my kids are connecting with people? They're really good at connecting with people. They're not shy of anybody, right? They will say hi to pretty much anybody. And that's good. That's what I want them to be, because I want them to be able to connect. Now, do they have to be extroverted and out there and going? No, an introvert can actually make eye contact and say hi and smile. You know, they don't even have to say hi. You just have to smile, right? So I'm going to challenge you guys to play that game. See how many smiles you can get in a day. Every time I go to the university, even though I might, like, if you do see me coming and you put your head down, I might come even closer to you. Then you have to be like, oh, what's that guy doing? And then I'm like, hi. And then you'll go by me and then I will laugh, because it's funner for me to play the game than it is for the other person. But at least I'm connecting with them. So challenge you guys, smile at people, you know, engage with them. All right. I'm just going to move something because it looks like some people are trying to text me. All right, 1 second. I'm going to shut that off. All right, perfect. Okay, so we know the secrets now. Next one, what is networking? So I want you guys to jump on and tell me. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm just going to go through the list I have. I wrote everyone's name down. So I'm just going to ask everyone as we kind of go through. So Devin, you're up first, buddy. What is networking to you? What do you think?
It's forming relationships with people.
Okay, perfect. Good. I love that. We'll go to the next one. Nadish, can we hear you yet?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
I think it's interacting with people to exchange information and form some relationships.
Okay, awesome. So relationship again, but I love that you have connecting right in there. So that's perfect. Riley, you're up.
I think it was like, again, it was like building relationships, but like kind of building bridges between people that are in like your general field, I guess. Like if you were saying like automotives and you were networking, like that's probably the people who you'd be networking to.
Perfect. So identifying the target and then connecting with that target, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I want you guys to remember some of these things, because when we say networking, everybody's like, oh, just teach me how to shake hands and teach me. I'm like, I don't care about that stuff. You need to know the foundation of why and what we're doing before we ever kind of get into that stuff. So that's perfect. I love that. So it's connecting with your target market. So we have relationship, connections, target market. Good. Robert, you're up.
I kind of see it as getting your name out there between different people and being able to expand upon that. Maybe they'll talk to different people about you and the work you did, and then you'll expand from there and people will just get to know who you are.
Awesome. All right. So we got relationship, we got connection to our target market, to expand our reach, right? To actually now start bridging and making things bigger. Perfect. Fantastic. Sarah Jane, you're up.
I think it is making the initial connection and leaving a good impression.
Okay, perfect. So it's a connection, but leaving a good impression is an interesting one, right? We get them to then like us when we're leaving a good impression. Also within impression is trust, right? That's the whole point of leaving a good impression, is for them to like us and then hopefully start on that process of trust. So that's good. So we got like, and I'm just going to put trust in that one. Good. Greg, you're up.
Yeah, I'd say networking is interacting with other people to create bonds.
Okay, good. So once again, the bonding on that one is like that, like and trust, but it's actually solidifying that a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to put bond. Now we have a new person on here. I don't see their, I only see their picture. Can't see their name. Let me see if it's in the participants. Is that Disha or Disha?
Hey, yes, it's Disha.
Disha. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Disha.
So networking would be like everyone's already pointed out, like getting some common ground, putting your name out there and making connections based on that common ground, giving people something to remember you by, and yeah, getting your name out, something they can link your name to, and then, they remember you by. Yeah, that's really much it.
Okay, good. No, thank you. I like that. So common ground, but I like that they're remembering your name, right? And they're remembering you, which is kind of a key thing there. So, okay, perfect. Awesome. So you guys know everything about networking. The one thing that you didn't get was what I bolded in blue there. You see what I bolded in blue? Networking takes work. That's why the work is in there. A lot of times people are like, no, I'll just show up and then it'll just happen and then I'll just make connections and people will come to me. And you're like, no. Most networking, I'll just be quite honest with you, sucks. It's like trying to get married, and there's a difference between dating and marriage. Marriage takes work. Dating doesn't take any work, right? Marriage takes work. You got to get to a point where you're actually really like and trust each other for a long period of time and make commitments, right? But guess what good business relationships are? Good business relationships aren't dating. Good business relationships are like marriages, where you have a long-term commitment to someone that you trust and that you like, that you work at loving, right? And that is kind of that key. So it takes work. So when we're talking about or networking, it takes work to create and build those relationships. So I always want you guys to remember that networking is about work. So when you're going to networking, it is not about finding your friends, sitting down with them and having fun. That is the number one no-no in networking, right? You don't go and you're like, oh crap, oh, I feel a little bit, oh, where's my friend? Oh, there's my friend. I'll go just sit with them. That is not networking. That is partying in a really weird, professional, unfortunately, unsocial type of way, right? We're there to work, right? Once you guys actually get out there as business people, this is part of your job. This is part of your job description, is networking. And it is work, and you got to go after it, and you got to do some prep work, and you got to do some after work. It's not just in the moment. So a couple things I want to talk about that. When I'm talking about work being networking, pre-work, you need to prepare. Number one, the why. Why are you going? Okay, and we'll get into that in a second here, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But you need to go before you show up. You need to actually know why you're going to that networking event and what's your purpose. If you don't know that, stay home. Heather always hates me saying that. Actually, no, she doesn't. She loves me because she keeps on asking me to come back, right? But I always say, like, don't go to the networking unless you have a purpose and know why you're going, because you're just wasting your time and you're wasting other people's times. Okay? That's the pre-work. Then you go there and you work and you make those connections and you find those things. And then at the end is the post-work. There is always post-work and networking, or you didn't do it right. Right? You didn't do networking right if you don't have homework to do. Right? From that networking event. And you're like, oh, no, don't talk to me about homework. I already have enough. No, there is end homework with networking, because at some point in your networking, you promised someone that you were going to do something. And if you didn't promise someone that you were going to do something for them, you did it wrong. You should be leaving all networking events with a promise to do something for someone. Whether or not that's sending them a cool article you found, sending them a text with the book that you guys were talking about, connecting them to another person that you said you were going to, or that you made a commitment to send them your resume, or you're going to send them the product that you were talking about. Whatever their purpose is of networking, you definitely needed to make a promise there, and you need to fulfill that promise. Does that make sense to everyone? Shake your heads. Good. I want you to think about that. Most of the time, people think that networking is about shaking hands and kissing babies. That's not what networking is about. That's not even really part of it. The most important part is the pre and the post and the moment of work as you're kind of going in there. So what is networking? let me go back, jumped ahead. Making, then nurturing relationships, right? Everything you guys said, right? A relationship of connection, target, expanding, like, trust, bond, common ground, that they'll remember your name, okay? But that's about making that relationship, then nurturing that relationship. And so when does networking end? It doesn't, right? Nurturing has to happen because it's a relationship. If you don't nurture, now that doesn't mean that you have to call them every day or every week or even every month, but every time you see him, you better know their name. You better know about what you guys talked about. You got to remember maybe about their family. And the more that you can connect with them and nurture that relationship, they will be more apt to do something for you. Okay. It's just like a marriage. You need to make it and then you need to nurture it forever, right? That is the key. You need to put in the work and the effort, but there's big payoffs in that one. All right. So now we've discussed, we're all on the same page, hopefully now, of what networking is. Now I can talk about the next stuff. Okay. So the key of doing that is you need to find common ground, right? We're going to, Heather set up like speed networking, group networking. You guys are networking. Like even right now, you guys are in a networking group right now and you're not even knowing about it, right? You should know each other's names, right? I have already written your guys' names down. I'm not just going to rely on what's on the screen. I want to know. I did one earlier for the Management Society and I saw their paper here on my desk. I knew all of their names too, right? So that I can understand, all right, I can see that not one of them showed up to my networking event, so they're not nurturing anything with me, as it kind of goes through. Now, some of them might have class and that's okay. I'm not like holding anything against them, but the key is make sure you know one another, because in here, maybe Devin shows up. He's like, oh, he's going in that case competition. Oh, and he's in international business. I really want to get into international business. I should probably contact him and kind of connect with him somehow, right? Well, now I know who he is. Now I can reach out and say, hey, I was in that networking event with you. Hey, do you want to, are you around? Can I just chat with you, pick your brain on how I can get, maybe I'm a first year and I want to get into international business next year. What does that look like? How was it? What do you like about it? What should I take, etc. There's always opportunities to connect with people, even if we're just sitting here. And the simple is know who's in your audience. Okay. So you must find common ground. So like I said, when we were walking down the trail with my family, I am trying to find common ground with those individuals as quick and as fast as possible, because you literally have seconds. And then it's a competition between my kids and myself of who can get them to say more, right? And of course I win, right? Because I would never let my kids win. Why would you let them do that, right? You got to challenge them. They got to earn that stuff, So connecting with common ground are simply finding someone's interests. Let's just call it that for right now. Okay. But some areas that you can easily gravitate to, whether or not you are connecting at a table, connecting at a speed thing, you just have to do it faster, right? But that is, do they have a job right now? Are they working? Are you just going to school or are you working? And that is a simple question. The way that you find common ground, everyone, is simply by asking a few questions, then shutting up. If you're the one asking the questions, you're the one leading that conversation. If you are the one just telling people, people are going to tune you out and they don't care. Find general concern and care for someone else by asking them good, sincere questions, and you will develop a relationship. If you are just there to talk about yourself, go home, because no one wants you there. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? Make sure you're asking good questions. So find out if they work. Oh, do you work or are you just doing school right now? What a simple question. And they're like, oh, I'm just doing school right now. You're like, oh, fantastic. What are you taking? Oh, you're in international business. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you like it? Yeah, I know, it's awesome. Who's your favorite professor? I think, oh, it's this guy. Oh, do you get good grades? Right? You can ask any question you want as you're just kind of digging in some of those things. What about their interests? Interests are a little bit harder to kind of get into, to ask questions, because interests are so broad, right? So a lot of times you need to gain some interest as in where you're at. Okay, so if you're at a business management networking event, you know their interest is going to be somewhat around business, and then you can branch out from there by asking, hey, what did you do this past weekend? Or did you have a great weekend? Oh, what did you guys do? Oh, I went curling. Ah, that's their interest. Curling is their interest. Perfect. Do you love curling? Oh, yeah, it's awesome. Have you been doing it for a long time? Yeah, I've been doing it since grade 5. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. You know, have you been into a recent bonspiel? Remember to learn as much as you can about a whole bunch of stupid stuff so you know what a bonspiel is. Does everyone know what a bonspiel is? See? So it is a tournament for curlers. That's it. That's all you need to know. But the more useless information, and I call it useless because my wife says that I have a ton of useless information in my brain, but guess who can connect to pretty much anybody around the world? I can, because I know a whole bunch of useless stuff that's very, very important to someone else. So I can get and have a great conversation. I don't have to know everything there is about that subject. I just need to know enough, right? To build and to create a connection, to build and create some form of common ground. So that's something about interest. You can talk about friends. Oh, did you, have you moved here? Do you have a lot of friends around? Or are you moving from somewhere else? Oh, right. What about where you grew up? Where's your hometown? Maybe you're not from this country. When I was taking Asia Pacific Management, I honestly thought when I was taking it that I was going to be with a bunch of other Canadians, that we were learning about Asia and Pacific Management. I found out that I was the only Canadian and everyone else was from Vietnam, Korea, China, Japan, Cambodia, and then a couple of them from, Canada, but their parents were from there as well. So I was like the only white guy in this Asia Pacific Management group, which was fun. It was fantastic. And I got to really learn a lot more about their culture because I got to connect with them. But I got to find out, well, where did you grow up? Oh, you grew up in Japan. Oh, where did you live in Japan? And then you can find those things. Sports is always a good one. Family, see if they're married, see if they have kids, right? All that stuff's important. So I give you those kind of generic stuff so that you guys can think about some areas that you can easily and quickly ask good questions about. And if you don't ask good questions, start practicing now. A great game that I like to play with my kids, but also my clients, like business owners, we just play the question game. You're not allowed to answer the question. You're only allowed to repeat by asking a question. And that game doesn't get played with my wife because she drives her crazy that I won't answer her question I just answer with another question. What do we want to do tonight? Well, what do you want to do, honey? Stop asking me a question. Well, why would you want me to stop asking you a question? I'm just trying to find out more about you, right? It's still a question. And so be mindful of the games that you play, but it's a great exercise to get you used to asking more and better questions. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, perfect. The better you get at answering questions, the better you will do in business, the better that you will do in life, right? And the better that you'll do in selling. Now, everything in life is selling, especially when you're trying to get married. You better sell yourself and you better make sure that they're going to buy that. Okay. All right. So I want to tell you a story. There's a young man that came to his dad and he said, "Dad, how do I become successful?" So the dad kind of looked at him and took him and grabbed him and dunked his head in this big bucket of water and just held him in there. And the kid was like, whoa, and he couldn't breathe and he was freaking out, right? And the dad held him in there for quite a long time. And then finally pulled him back out and the kid's just sputtering and going, "Dad, what did you do that for?" And he's like, "What were you thinking about when you were in the water?" "That I needed air," the kid said. He's like, exactly. So when success comes to you as important as air, that's when you'll be successful. Now, I don't know if you really want to do that to your kids to teach them about that principle. Maybe just tell them the story. But it's a great philosophy to think about when we right? He wasn't, the kid's in the water. He's not thinking about what he's going to wear today. He's not going to think about what he's going to eat for lunch. He's not going to think about what his next Instagram post is going to be. He's not thinking about anything like that. All he's thinking about is air. So when you want to be successful in whatever it is, and I just use success as more of a general term, but if you want a job, well, that's success, right? If you want to get good grades, well, that's success. So when you want that thing so bad that you're not thinking about anything else, that becomes your why. And that's what we're talking about. So why do you do networking, right? Why do we network? Why do you network? So that's the question, because my networking is totally different from your networking, even though we're in business, right? You're networking, and guess what? Each and every one of you has a different philosophy of why you're networking as well. It could be, number one, it could be to get a job. It could be, right, to find a partner in your like physics class or your international business class or whatever it is, right? Why are you connecting? Why are you going there? So when you guys, before, this is what I was talking about earlier about the pre-work before going into networking. The pre-work is you need to decide the why of why you're going. What is the main purpose of why you're going to that networking event? Is it to make one connection? Is it to have one important thing that's new in your life that you've never thought of? It's one of those epiphanies is what I would call, right? Is it just one of those things, right? What is the main purpose of just actually making one of those connections? Or maybe you're coming with a specific question. You don't know the answer, you have a question and you just want to come. So for instance, every time any of my clients or any of my anybody that I work with in any form or fashion goes to like a conference, right? We do these conferences, they go to different conferences. I always make them write out before they go, what are the top 10 things that they want to get out of it and learn before they go there. They're like, well, I don't really know what the conference is about and I don't know what they're going to talk about. I'm like, I don't care, right? I want to know what are the top 10 things you want to get out of that. And one of them can be some new idea that can help grow my business. Perfect. Put that one down. I want to connect with one person that's really going to connect me to someone else that I can hire. Perfect. That's a great. Number 2, right? You got 8 more to go. But make sure when we're going to seminars, when we're going to conferences, when we're going to networking events, even when you're going into class, like a new class, what are you going to get out of it? What's your purpose? What's your why of going into that event? Then write it down. And as you write it down, it actually locks into your reticular activating system in your brain, and your brain is going to help you solve that question. And it's going to bring it to your attention. But if you didn't write it down, you would not get it. Does that make sense? Right? So let's say, all right, let's pick Teslas because I'm just on Tesla today. Right? So if I just say you guys are going to see a Tesla today or over this next weekend, and I'm going to lock that into your brain right now, you're going to see a Tesla. Even though if you don't know what it looks like, you're going to see a Tesla and you're going to find it. Just by me saying that right now to you and locking it into your brain, I guarantee that you're going to go and see a Tesla in the next day or 2. I just guarantee it, right? The reason why is because you are no longer consciously looking for it. I've locked it into your brain subconsciously that it will find it for you. And as you're driving down the road, it will find a Tesla and go, hey, there's a Tesla. Remember that stupid guy that you did that networking thing and he told you that you're going to find a Tesla? Oh yeah, there it is. Boom. Okay. once we write things down, they get injected into our brains, and our brains now subconsciously try to solve them for us. This is why, have you ever heard of a vision board or a dream board, or where we put pictures up of our goals, right? If you haven't, you do need to do some research on that, and you need to do one. You need to write your goals. You need to put some pictures up of your goals. What do you want? Once you put them up and you look at them repeatedly, they start to lock into your brain. And then your brain goes to work to help you solve those things. For instance, if you want to learn Croatian, I don't know why, maybe you want to go to Croatia next summer and you want to learn Croatian, and you say, my goal is to learn Croatian. And you look at that every day that you're going to learn Croatian. I guarantee you over the next couple months that you are going to find someone that can teach you Croatian, because your brain is going to find it for you. I can like bet money on it because it works. Every single time it works. I remember one time I told someone to do that, and they called me like 2 hours later, and I was like, oh, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And he goes, I just wanted to let you know I'm sitting next to a Tesla at the intersection. I'm like, oh, good. So it works. He's like, yep. I'm like, good. Now use it for your goals. Use it for something that you want to do and we want to accomplish. That is the power of purpose. That is the power of your why. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Make sure we use it properly. All right. The key, remember, is to help you draw closer to your goals. That is why we do networking. It really comes down to, what is it? It's building relationships and nurturing them. Number two, why do we do it? It helps you. We don't network for anyone else. I know it sounds bad, it sounds selfish. And you know how we do it is going to be focused on everyone else. When we go to network and we don't do it for ourselves, we have to do the how of taking care of someone else. But the why is to help us grow closer to our goals. Okay, so I want you to remember that. Now, I want to teach you something that's a little bit more of a deep thought for you today. And I know it's Friday and I apologize. You guys are like, oh, I had enough school for this week. All right, but I'm going to teach you the law of precession. So law of precession is a scientific, it's a physics actual law. Like there's a law of gravity, right? There's a law of the vacuum, and this one's like the law of precession. So law of precession states for every action, there is a right angle. Okay, so for instance, we as an Earth are in the law of precession, right? As we orbit around the sun. So we are in precession with that sun. And at some point, and at any given point in that action, there is an actual right angle to the sun as we kind of go through that. And there's a whole bunch of physics stuff, which I will not bore you with, but it's a scientific thing that we now utilize for business. So this is done by Buckminster Fuller. He was a famous architect, actually. He created the geodesic dome, if you guys ever wondered. But he also took a lot of scientific principles and applied them to business, like the law of gravity. How does that apply? You know, the law of precession. How does that apply to business and how we can use that? So law of precession states, if we are at A and we want to get to B, that's the goal. We want to go from A to B. The challenge is if you go straight for your goal, most of the time you're not going to reach it. Okay? Most of the time you're not going to reach it. Now, the reason why is because sometimes we need to go in a totally different direction, right? Not opposite, but different direction. And we need to point to C. And by going to that different direction, we actually end up getting C and B. All right, so let me give you an example. If we have a business, let's say a clothing company. We have a clothing company. It's in the mall, and our main focus is to make money, right? And so everything we do is making money, making money, making money. That's our end goal. And is that a good end goal? Of course. As a business, you need to make money, because if you don't make money, you can't pay for your staff, you can't pay for your clothes, you can't pay for your warehouse, and you can't put food on your table. So you need to be making money. Now, but if that is your main goal as you're targeting it to be, you're going to have a problem and you're not going to get there very, very quickly or very easily. Now, if you change that direction just slightly and focus on the customer, right? So C is the customer and that customer service. If you focus all of your efforts on customer and customer service, taking care of them, you're actually going to get amazing customer service by focusing on that. And it just so happens you're actually going to make a lot of money as well. Okay, does that make sense? So that law of precession states for every action, there is a right angle. So we can go for something else and at the same time end up with our end goal without actually going towards that. You know, and that's just an example of customer service and focusing. Now, there's a lot of other examples out there, but I want you guys to understand when we're networking, the whole key of networking, if you guys have ever learned, the more you give, the more you get. If you're going out there to get, you're not going to win. So if B is to get something and you're going out to get something, networking is going to be very bad for you. But if you're going out there to give, AKA C, you're actually going to get, which is B. Okay, so remember, networking is about giving. And once you give, you will get what is called the law of reciprocity. You will then be reciprocated in your giving, then you will actually get. Does that make sense to everyone? I know I kind of threw a bunch of things at you, but the whole key is givers get or givers gain is kind of that kind of connection. Okay, so last law of precession. And every book you read on networking is always going to be about the more that you give, the more that you get as you kind of go through all that stuff. Okay. All right. So you're like, oh, we finally got into digital networking. How are we going to do this? Well, digital networking is kind of a fallacy because it doesn't matter if it's digital or if it's in person. You just got to do the same stuff. It's just digitally, you know, but digitally always has to go to physically at some point, right? For the most part. Now, it doesn't always have to be because you can do it via digital, but it always has to become in person. And when I say in person, that doesn't mean face-to-face shaking hands. It means this, either face-to-face via Zoom or at least on the phone. It's very difficult to kind of create a relationship just via text, email, or through digital social media. Does that make sense, everyone? Right? You need to at some point connect with the person, and the minimum is phone. The second is Zoom, and the third is actually in person. Okay, so when we talk about digital marketing gives you the opportunity to make a phone call. Once you get a phone call, that then leads to in person or face-to-face, or then actually in person when we kind of get there. Okay, so digital marketing is it. Now, what a lot of times people think when they say digital marketing is LinkedIn. I just got to go on LinkedIn and I just got to network with everybody. Well, if you're just connecting with people, you know, for me, I'm just like delete, 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 because most of the time it's this person is trying to network with me, and what she's saying is, I do marketing for coaches. Connect with me. I'm like, oh, you're trying to sell me. Delete. I don't receive anybody like that. That is not helping me in any way, right? You need to find and connect with me in a different way, and by helping me, not, hey, I can do this for you if you pay me. I'm like, no thanks. It's kind of like I come to your guys' class and I'm like, hey, can I be your friend? But you have to pay me, right? So we're good, right? You're gonna pay me to be your friend. It's exactly the same thing, right? Don't do it. Okay, it's very, very annoying. I'll be quite honest with you. But that is, you still need to be on LinkedIn. Now I'll get to why you need to be on LinkedIn and where you need to be on LinkedIn in a second. But there's also Facebook. Now, some of you youngins might not like Facebook, but if you're going into the business world, Most of the old people are still on Facebook. So you need to be able to understand it. You need to be able to understand it and navigate it. Now, the crazy thing about Facebook now is now it became Meta. Meta is going to change a lot of things in the near future and in the late future, just because Facebook is now becoming more of a thing and Meta is becoming the actual company. So Facebook is going to become a portal to a lot of that stuff. You just need to be aware of it. I don't care if people like it, dislike it, or not. That means nothing to me, right? If you're in business to connect with people. And if all of your people are on Facebook, you got to get on Facebook. Does that make sense? You got to find your people where they're at. So LinkedIn, great. Facebook, also great. Twitter, it's a great place because there's good conversation. It's good. It's about a place of conversation. It's about a place of connection through conversations. So it's better than Facebook when you're getting into connection or conversations and connections in that way, but it's not in the same league. It's different. Remember, all these things are completely different and they have different purposes. You can't just say, I just got to be on all of them. No, you don't. You might just need to be on one. Side little story for you guys. I started working with a welder. He had a welding shop just east of town here. And he was doing okay. You know, I think he was probably making, let's say $500,000. Okay. Doing some stuff. I got him onto LinkedIn. I showed him how to use it. He was a great salesman over the phone. And what I did is I said, you are down here. Your costs are low. You have great welders. Your costs are low. You can produce so much more right down here for way cheaper than the welding shops up in Calgary and Edmonton. So I said, why don't you connect with all of the purchasing agents of all the oil companies on LinkedIn and start building a relationship with them? So we did. He started connecting on LinkedIn, and then he built, and then he asked some good questions. Hey, is there anything that I can help you guys out with? Is there anything that you guys have projects? Now, it's okay to connect with purchasing agents because they are trying to find people to send their RFPs to, their requests for proposals to. They want to get good quotes, so they will connect with him. As he kind of connected through LinkedIn, he moved to on the phone. He got their phone number. He started contacting them, and he built relationships. Within no less than 2 years, he was on up making around $10 million because he started getting all of the projects that no one else, they're like, oh, wow, we'll send you all our projects if you can handle them, because you can build all those projects for half the price that everyone else can. He's like, yeah, I can, because my costs are low. Paying a welder up in Calgary costs 3 times as much as paying a welder down here, right? Because they were all at that time sucked into the oil field. So remember that, understanding why you're using the things that you're using here makes a big difference. Now, I am going to throw up Pinterest. Now, Etsy is another one. I don't have Etsy up here, but Etsy is another one, but it's more of a marketplace than Pinterest. But if your target market is on Pinterest, you need to be on Pinterest. So understand where your target is or where your network is before you go network. Last one is Instagram. This is actually the one I hate the most. And the reason why I say it is because it's not a connection and it's not a conversation. It is pictures that most of the time are fake in the context of what they're trying to portray. They're always going to put their best foot forward. So it's a very difficult thing to build a network just off of Instagram. Now, there are some people that have great connections. So if you're doing beauty products, or if you're doing hairstyles, or if you're doing, I have a friend of mine that does like woodworking stuff, and he made a huge following on TikTok and Instagram and Google through YouTube, and he makes like $30,000 a month. Now, it took him a lot of effort and a lot of time to get to that point. But remember, that is not a network, that is a following. There's a difference between those two. You know, oh no, I'm networking on Instagram. I'm like, no, you're not. You're just creating a following. And followings are okay for certain things, not for everything, right? What's the point of having Instagram for an insurance company. Right? What are you going to put on there? Pictures of you in the office? You know, like you're not going to get a following that's actually going to do anything for you. So make sure you understand the socials, right? And the way that you network. Okay. Once again, backing this all up, number one for business is going to be LinkedIn. Number two for business, I would probably say Twitter, Facebook would be in there, and then the other one's kind of going on. Now, once again, none of these things matter if you don't know your target. So the whole point of networking is you need to find your target. So, has any of you ever heard of Houzz before? Right? So if you Google it, it is kind of like Pinterest, but for housing and architecture, right? And design, interior design, like houses. So it's just all about houses. So you can go on and see amazing pictures of people's work. And it's kind of like a social. So it's kind of like Pinterest mixed with Instagram, or sorry, Pinterest mixed with LinkedIn for housing and interior design. So if you go on and look on it, it's great. And then now you can go on and you can buy some products and they kind of connect to some things. Now, so if your target is all about interior design, products for houses, construction, architecture, you need to be on Houzz, not on Instagram. So make sure you know where you want to connect to, and then make sure you actually get there. Now, if you're all about travel, right, you need to join associations that are around travel. So Travel Massive is a big association that's around the world that's all about travel. So if you're into tour guiding and experiences and that type of business, you need to join that one. That's the one you need to be networking at. You don't need to be networking through LinkedIn or Facebook. You need to be starting there. Now, the last one, I think I wrote it down. So Greg, you're in accounting, right? You need to be going to all the CPA events, all the CPA associations, those type of networking. Now, CPA, I picked them because they're super easy because they do those type of things. Now, if you guys are in international business, but I think Devin left, he messaged on there, he had to go. But international business, you got to find the associations that are associated with those things. And that's where you need to be networking. You don't need to be networking everywhere else, because that's where you're going to find and connect with the people that you want to actually find and connect with. Right? Is that clear for everyone? Awesome. All right. So, question: what is 1 + 1 + 1 equal? Right? In math, it's 3. In business, it actually equals 5. Everyone's like, what? I did a finance. Who was in the finance? Robert was in finance. You know, everyone else is probably taking finance class. You're like, sorry, Greg, but 1 + 1 does not equal 5 in business. But you got to remember, business is about synergy. Business is about relationships and connections. So 1 + 1 + 1 actually does equal 5, if not infinity. Now, let me explain. Okay. Actually, I'm not going to do that one quite yet. I'm going to do 5 first. Let me explain. If I connect with, I'm just going to pick on someone, Riley. So if I connect with Riley and Riley connects me to, you know, his uncle, and his uncle aligns perfectly with my business, that can help me get funding, that can help me get a job, that can help me get into venture capital or whatever, that 1 + 1 + 1 is way more valuable than 5, right? That connection alone will connect me to so many more people and so many more things than you can ever imagine. But it takes more than 1 + 1. That's why I added the third one, everyone. It's not just 1 + 1 = 5. You have to make a connection. That third one is valuable. 1 + 1 has to equal another +1 in order to equal it a 5. If you just have 1 and 1, it's still only equal to 1. Okay? Right? So if I connect with Riley, great, that's fine, but it's only going to connect me to one other person. Once that 1 + 1 + 1, that's very vital. Now, why do I say that in that way? Because you never want to, you want to get to a point where you never have to introduce yourself. Okay, so that was my next point, right? You need to work hard until you or your company no longer has to introduce itself. So when I go to a networking event and I know Riley and we've been kind of connecting and he knows what I can provide and he's like, I have the perfect guy for you to connect to. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. He's like, come with me. And he walks me over and he says, Dave, this is Greg. He has the #1 solution for you. I think you guys will make a great fit. Boom. That's money. That's networking. That's connection. That is 1 + 1 now = 5+. Does that make sense, everyone? It has to go to the third thing. And if Riley's introducing me, not just me, because if I just walk up to that guy, it doesn't mean as much. But if someone always introduces you, it's always that much more valuable and that much more important. So make sure when you're going out there, find someone to connect you to someone else, because warm leads are always better than cold leads, right? We know that from business, right? Warm leads are always better than cold leads, but you have to network in order to get warm leads, right? Because warm leads are always about getting referred on or introduced through someone else. So I got a question for you guys. So turn off your mute if you guys have. I want you to tell me if anybody knows who this person is. Oh,
CEO of Nike.
man, I tell you, sometimes Keynote just doesn't like me. Oh, it's because I was switching back and forth between Keynote and Zoom. All right, so that was, let me just go through that. Robert, was that you that said that? Who said that it was the CEO?
Me.
Oh, Sarah Jane, you said that. All right, perfect. You are correct. Do you know his name?
No, not
No, okay. So did anybody else know who this is before I show the next picture? All right, so this guy's name is Phil Knight. He is the guy that founded and created Nike, right? So that's where we're going to the next slide, right? Do you guys all know Nike? Yes, everyone knows Nike. You don't have to be introduced to that, but there's interesting, and this is why I want to kind of make sure that you or your company doesn't have to introduce himself. This guy had to introduce himself to anybody that's not really a sneakerhead or anybody that's in the sports world. Anybody that's actually in the sports and sneaker world that understands, knows who this guy is. Phil, and his name is Phil Knight, by the way. Okay, not Phil Knight. What did I get that? No, yeah, it is Phil Knight. I got it mixed up with someone else. So when we're looking at this, right, we don't know him because he wasn't the type of person, which I'll actually get to a little bit later on as a question. He doesn't put himself above his brand. He always made his brand above him. So he wanted everyone to know Nike, not who Phil Knight was, right? As we're kind of going through that. So make sure that you or your company is well known. So we need to help solve a problem, though. The whole purpose of going in and doing networking is you need to be that solution to a problem, right? So you have to have and discover a problem. So how do we discover problems? What do we ask? We ask questions. And after you ask enough questions, you'll be able to find out the problem that that person has. So let's say I'm networking with Sarah Jane and I'm like, all right, Sarah Jane. And I just ask her a whole bunch of questions. I'm getting to know her. I'm kind of narrowing it down and trying to find, and then we finally happen on to, oh, Sarah Jane needs something. Perfect. That's a problem. Now, can I solve that problem? I need to know who I am and if I can solve that problem. And hopefully at that point that I can, and then I can be that solution. So number one, I need to know who I am and what I bring to the table, right? So you need to know, like I said at the very beginning, Knowing a lot of useless stuff actually helps you in the long run when you're in business and networking. But you need to know who you are. You need to discover what that problem is, and then you need to figure out how can you solve that. Because if I can solve the problem, right, then I get the reward. So what is the problem? It could be they're looking for a new grad out of the accounting or finance department, and they're looking for a new grad, and you just so happen to walk up and you figured out. So let me change this a little bit. All right, let me use this stuff. I'm going to pick on Riley because he's in general management, and then Robert's in finance. So I'm going to use you two. So Riley goes in and he's buddies with Robert, and he knows that Robert's in finance, and he goes in to Sarah Jane, who is the head of a company, and he's networking with her, and her problem is she's trying to find a student that they can hire. Well, instantly Riley can then make that connection and solve that problem for Sarah Jane. It helps out Robert, but in the same time, now Sarah Jane really, really, really likes Riley because he's now solving her problems. So now Riley has what that call is like that emotional bucket. He's now filled her bucket up that he can then deposit every once in a while. So he can always go back and deposit some of that emotion or some of that goodwill that he can use for himself later on. Does that make sense, everyone? If you're solving problems for people, people love you, like you, and then want to do things and reciprocate that same blessing or that same opportunity back to you. Hence why we talked about the foundation of networking at the beginning, which is about giving. When we give, then we get as we do those things. So make sure you know who you are, figure out that problem by asking good questions, and then make sure that you solve it. Now, that could be that homework that I was talking to later on. It could be that Sarah Jane had a question and she couldn't, and you're like, I have the perfect book for you. I'll send it to you when I get home. And you go home and you send that book. You made that commitment. You made that promise. Gives you an opportunity later on to actually follow up and say, hey, Sarah Jane, did you get that book I sent you? Did you get a chance to read it? Oh, yeah, I did. It was fantastic. Oh, wonderful. I just wanted to make sure, follow up if you liked it and if it was helpful. And she'd be like, yeah, that's great. And you're like, all right, perfect. That's it. And she's like, well, is there anything I could do for you? Ah, now comes the switch. You know, and you can do that with anybody. Could be a professor. Could be going to like a trade show and you're just connecting with anybody, right? And if you do something good and nice for them, and that might not have anything to do with business, right? It could be he's big into pickleball, right? And he can't find a certain paddle, and you just so happen to find it for him or her, and you send it off, right? There's so many ways to kind of connect with people, and you just got to find out what it is that their problem is. And it might not have anything to do with business, but it's still a problem to them. Maybe they're struggling with their kid, right? And you knew something that helped you when you were a kid, or you know someone that can help you. Whatever it is, help solve their problems. Now, sometimes things grow. So I will not touch any buttons. Who knows these guys? Anybody? All right, let me go to the next page. Anybody know this guy? Everybody knows this guy? So this guy is Elon Musk, okay? It started, and so let me step back. Who's the founder of Tesla? Do you guys know? Is it Elon? Okay, so at least you guys know. These guys are the founders of Tesla. So you guys actually know, okay? These guys are the founders of Tesla. And if you actually just Google founders of Tesla, these guys will pop up. I can't. Robert, someone, Neiman, and I can't remember the other guy's name. But these guys, no one knows, but they were the founders of Tesla. They're the ones that came out with that original Roadster that was built off of the Eclipse, which is a different form factor out of a Lotus, the Lotus Eclipse, which is a car That's the first Tesla Roadster that guy created for himself and then went on, but they couldn't get it to market. And that's when Elon came in and kind of just took it over. Now, I don't know the full story about who likes who and if they hate him or if they like him or if they still have shares. I have no clue what that is. But Tesla would not be a Tesla at all in any form or fashion without Elon Musk. So he came in and was the solution to help grow that. He was also then the solution for SpaceX that he went into, and then everything else as he's kind of moving on. Now, he's a visionary guy, but he connects with good people that then actually makes things happen. Whether or not you like him or not, that doesn't matter. The point is, when we're networking, we go and solve a problem, and the person that solves the problem is the one that everyone knows about. These guys are the ones that solved the problem. They're the ones that created it. No one knows who they are. Everyone knows this guy, okay? So just remember, the people that solve the problem are the ones that actually get married. The ones that actually get remembered is what I was trying to say. Or married, same thing, kind of in the same thing. So make sure that we are and we become or be the solution for everything. So there's a great quote that says, all things being equal, people do business and refer business to people they know, they like, and they trust. Write that one down, okay? Make sure you guys write that one down. All things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, they like, and they trust. The reason why that is, I'll give you a little bit of the back end of that one. When we refer someone to something, we put our name on it. So if I say, guys, you need to go try the Keg, and they have a secret menu or secret way that they do steaks. And if you ask them to do their steaks Chicago style, which is actually a thing, by the way, I just found out last night, you can get them Chicago style, which they like throw a touch of butter on it, and it's amazing. I'm putting my name to that. And so if I refer that to you guys and you go try it, you're like, that's awful, and you come back to me and you're like, that was the worst experience I ever had. Why did you give me that referral? I'm like, ooh, do you think I'm ever going to refer that to anyone else? No, because it was my name that I put onto that referral, and now I look bad. So we do not typically refer other things or people unless we know, like, and trust them. So I know, like, and trust. I've actually not tried because I just found out about it last night. And I typically do not like the Keg. I've never actually had a good steak there, which is really weird because they're a steakhouse. But I've never had a good one. But the information that I got was actually from one of their assistant managers who I actually know, like, and trust really, really well. And he told me that, hey, you need to get a Chicago style. I'm like, well, duh, I wish you would have told me that a long time ago. But now I know, like, and trust him. I can then, without even trying it, I can refer it to you guys, right? And then apparently Riley has tried that before, and it's amazing, right? Yeah, see? So backs my principle up. So what we need to do for you guys is you need to be able to raise your know factor, your like factor, and your trust factor. Right? Your know factor, your like factor, and your trust factor. Now, how do you do that? Well, you do everything that I talked to you about so far. You build relationships. You get people to trust you, right? You get people to trust you by following through. When you follow through, you do work for them. You connect with them. You smile at them and you make eye contact with them. Now they will like you. And as you continue to get better known for that type of person, you will get better known, then you like, and then you're trusted, right? As you go through that. It's kind of weird. You actually have to start with trust and then go to like, and then go to know, and then you go from know back to like, and then they really trust you, right? But that's how you go after that. So make sure you're the solution for people, right? And connect in with their know, like, and trust factor. That's something that you guys can work on individually. All right. Remember, when you're going to networking, it's all about quality, not quantity. Don't go in there trying to get as many business cards as you possibly can, or connections as you can. Get as many quality ones. And if that's just one, that's all you need. Quality over quantity always when it comes to networking and when it comes to business. Now, that doesn't mean that you just stick with that one person and chat with them all night. They have to be of quality. They have to be part of the goals that you set and your purpose and your why before you even got to the networking. They need to be, right, be able to solve that for you, and then you need to kind of carry through and follow through. So if it's not quality, you got to move on, right? You're like, oh, this person's really great to chat with, you know, it's fun. But if they're not, while you're there, you need to move on and go to and find the quality people, okay? So remember, quality, not quantity. All right. So this is my buddy. Even Napoleon can do some good networking. Everyone watch Napoleon Dynamite? Right? If you haven't, make sure you watch it. Right? It's kind of a thing. You should watch it. Now, Napoleon is probably the most awkward and disconnected and person that cannot connect with anybody ever. But if you actually watch the show, you realize that he actually connects with two good friends, right? And he even connects at the things that he's good about when he's in the 4-H club, right? When he's actually dealing with the cows and drinking the cow milk. He is in his target market and he's in his environment and he's able to connect with them because he's doing what they have and people like him there. Now, people hate him at school, but that doesn't matter. That's not his target. His target was the 4-H club. So remember, follow Napoleon's thing, find the target and go after it. Now, it was just more for fun that I put him up there. But I want you to remember these key things. Virtual, how do you go from virtual to physical? V to P, right? I already taught you this stuff. Hopefully you guys will understand everything I've done so you can answer all these questions as we go through. But I just want to remind you. Virtual to physical is start virtual, move to a phone call to face-to-face to in-person, okay? That is kind of the connection. Now, you don't have to do all of them. You just need to do one of those ones until you can get in person. But even so, I have some great connections that I've only talked to the phone on around the world because they're in Australia, right? I can't really connect with them too often, but I can call them up anytime because they're a great network of mine. Okay, so make sure that you're connecting with people. So that's how we go from virtual to physical, is just making some of those things. Next one, how do you do speed networking? Well, I taught you guys that through going down the hiking trail. You got to go fast, to the point, but building relationships by making eye contact, smiling, and smiling is about being pleasant. Okay, if you're not smiling, you're not pleasant, no one wants to talk to you. So make eye contact, smile, get as fast as you can to something of interest and in common. How do you do that? By asking what? Questions. Questions. Right now in speed dating or speed networking, same thing. You have to ask a question, allow them to ask a question. Ask a question, allow them to ask a question. You want to be able to go back and forth as quick as possible because you don't want to be like, question. That's not networking. That's actual selling. That's selling on your stuff. You want to be able to build that relationship. So you want to be able to find out back and forth and allow them to find out about you. So that's the key thing about speed networking. Now, what about group networking? So when you're at a table, the number one key thing you need to do at a table, and is what I showed you guys at the very beginning, know who's at your table. Okay? Know who's at your table. And so if you don't, always go, hey, I'd like to get everyone to know, can we just quickly go around the table, tell, and don't just say your name, you got to get something about them. And it could be their major. It's kind of a boring one, right? But you don't want to be too crazy, like, you know, what's your most embarrassing moment of your life? You don't want to do any of that kind of stupid thing. But you want to be able to get in and say, you know, hey, let's just quickly go around the table and what's your name and what's the favorite thing to do on the weekend? right? That could be one. Or I've done a lot of conferences where it's just been like, hey, what's your name and what's the number one thing you want to get out of today? Right? And they just say, hey, well, this is my name. This is the number one thing I want to get out of today. Boom. Then you get to know people a little bit better. So when you're in a group, once you get to know people, the dynamics of that table change. If you don't do that, the direct people or the very demanding or outgoing people take over the table, correct? Right? They start taking over the table. Well, it's because you haven't introduced anybody, you haven't made a team yet. You need to make a group, a team. You do that by getting to know each other a little bit better. Then when things come up, because you're like, well, how do you stop? These are some of the questions that Heather asked me to kind of run through you guys. How do you get someone that's super like overbearing and just takes over the conversation? You do what I did today, where he's like, all right, let's start with, what are we talking about? Let's start with, what's our favorite thing to do this or on the weekends? Riley, let's start with you. All right, and then let's go around the table. By structuring conversation, right? Riley, you don't have to answer that. It was just kind of a made up thing. So, but when we're structuring the conversation, you get out of the demanding people and you give a voice to everyone else. And that's all you have to do. All right, let's just go around the table. Let's just go around the table. Let's just go around the table. Structure the conversation and you can get better networking as you kind of go through. You can't do that until you, number one, introduce yourself, break the ice with something that you're kind of knowing or understanding, and then manage the conversation, right? By structuring that communication. Right? Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone following me on that one? Okay, perfect. Now, sometimes you might just have to take control of the table. That's one thing I do naturally for a number of different reasons. That's just comes naturally and easy to me. But then it helps me by, if I control the table a little bit, by saying, but that doesn't mean I need to be in charge, right? But I can control the table by, hey, let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Oh, wonderful. Blah, 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 blah. And then I can say, hey, Greg, what do you think about this? Hey, Robert, what do you think about this? Hey, Sarah Jane, what do you think about this? That's great. All right. Last time, in our round robin, we didn't get to, Sarah Jane didn't get to speak. Let's start with her this time. That type of stuff gets great communication and great networking happening in a group, right? All right, last one, booth. When you're out at some form of fair, job fair, work fair, whatever it is, and there's booths, okay? Once again, eye contact, smile, ask questions. Remember, the person that asks the questions controls the conversation. So when I teach people that are running booths, right? So if they're at a trade show like the Home and Garden Show and my client's a roofer, right? My job is to train them to take back the questioning, right? That's how you sell. That's how you control a conversation. So what typically happens in a Home and Garden Show is people are walking around. Same thing in a booth. Now, if you are the one running the booth, you got to take control of the questioning. So if someone comes in, this typically what happens, they come in, you're like, hey, so what are you guys doing here? What's this? What's this? What's this? And then you just spout off answers as a booth person. And then they're like, all right, cool, thanks. And they leave. And you're like, oh, they just drained me dry and left me with nothing. And I couldn't sell them anything. Well, you need to get back control of the question. So someone's walking by, they come in, they're like, hey, so what are you guys doing here? They're like, well, what are you looking for? Are you building a house right away? Oh yeah, we're building a house. Great. When are you looking at building a house? Perfect. Are you in town or are you out of town? Wonderful. Are you looking at doing it yourself or are you wanting someone else to do it? What's your budget? What's your time frame? Who are you using as a builder? Instantly, I took over the conversation and now I can guide that person however I want them to then sell them on whatever I want to sell them. It's all about asking questions. Now, let me reverse that for a second, because sometimes you guys are going to job fairs. And most of the time, the booth people aren't that smart to take control of the conversation. So guess what? you get to take control of the conversation. So you get to go up there and you get to ask them questions. Now, if you're trying to network with them, don't abuse that questioning power, because it is a superpower, right? It is a superpower if you can do it. But if you're trying to network them, make sure you're connecting with them. Ask them questions about themselves. Ask them questions about what it's like working there. Ask them questions, you know, is it a fun place to work? You know, what's your favorite thing about working here? If you're trying to find a job with them, you know, don't say, well, what's the benefits? You know, I want good benefits. You know, what's the salary range? You know, don't ask those type of questions. Ask the fun ones. What's the culture is probably your best question if you're going in and meeting with potential employers. What's the best culture there? Or what would you, sorry, not what the best culture. What's the culture like working at so-and-so accounting firm? Then they'll be like, oh, that's a great question. Well, we actually have a really good culture. You know, we're really about focusing on the employees. Oh, that's fantastic. What are some of the events that you guys do? Do you guys do events? Oh yeah, we have these, you know, monthly events that we get together. Oh, that sounds like really fun. Do you guys learn together as well? Like what's the, you know, whatever it is that you're interested in doing with them is kind of that connection that you can kind of ask them. So make sure you're going in and connecting in a way with that booth, but always remember the person that's asking the questions controls the conversation. Is that clear for everyone? Did you write that one down? All right, good. Making sure you guys wrote that one down.